Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hallandale Beach Chamber of Commerce State of Real Estate in South Florida. I am your moderator, Carla Guadamus Davis, and I am very happy to be here with all of you. And we're going to start by saying thank you and recognizing our partnering chambers who are here. Peter Mason of Tamarack North Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Sharoness Johnson of Davie Cooper City Chamber of Commerce, and a special thanks to our CEO and Executive Director of the Hallandale Beach Chamber of Commerce, Norma English. This is a very exciting event that we have scheduled for everyone today because real estate impacts all of us one way or the other. Before we get started, we would like to say a very special thanks to the Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors, who are actually powering today's event. And we'd like to open it up with a few remarks from the 2021 President, Karen Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Johnson, the 2021 President of Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors. We are a 36,000 member organization serving our real estate professional members right here from Hallandale Beach in the southern tip of Broward County, all the way up to the northern border of Port St. Lucie, 120 miles of coastline. Ever since our merger with former South Broward Realtors several years ago, our association has unified our messaging, community efforts, and public policy efforts. We have worked hard to emerge as a leader in the city commissions, meetings throughout the region, and we've worked hard to form a strong relationship with chamber partners. We are particularly proud of the partnership with Hallandale Beach Chamber of Commerce and continually rapidly blossom. Your CEO and Executive Director, Norma English, is always quick to reach out and respond, and the relationship has been fast moving and enjoyable. Just last week, we had a big win related to condominium transparency accountability initiative, which passed several months ago. These type of efforts and partnership clearly demonstrates that realtors view Hallandale as a critical component of the fabric of Broward County. The Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors is 100% committed to Hallandale Beach, and I'm excited not only for a great program today, but for all of our combined effort in days and months ahead. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate it.
Karen, thank you so much. And again, for those of you who are logging in, welcome to the State of Real Estate in South Florida, powered by the Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors. First, I'm going to get right into it with our amazing panelists. Everyone on this panel is super busy, and we're extremely excited and very happy that you guys were able to be here for us. We will again start with Karen Johnson, who's the 2021 president of the Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors. Shahad Carmeli, who is a developer, founder, and CEO of Carr Properties. And last but not least, Dr. Brad O'Connor. He's the chief economist of Florida Realtors. And I am your moderator, Carla Guadamus Davis. I'm the founder, broker, and owner of I Love Mi Casa Realty right here in Hallandale Beach. And I'm a proud board member of the Hallandale Beach Chamber of Commerce. Guys, we're gonna dig right in. I'm gonna ask everyone a question. If you can answer it in 2 to 3 sentences before we go into too many details. My first question is, what the heck is going on in South Florida real estate? Karen, you can start us off with that.
Low inventory, extremely low inventory. And that's just because of all of the wonderful things that's happening in Florida with so much people moving in. Great rates, it's a perfect storm in that way. We have a serious shortage of inventory. And I could start it off because I know Brad will have a lot to add in regards to that. So everyone keeps coming. We welcome them, but we're cautious in regards to how much inventory we don't have.
So your message here is short inventory.
Correct.
Okay, Shahad, what would you say is happening right now?
Structural change. This is a structural reset. It's not a bleep. It's very fashionable for the wagging tongues to say, oh, we've seen this in Miami before. It kind of explodes and it dies down. And I say, first of all markets go through rises, peaks, and troughs. That's the nature of capitalism markets. But what's happening in Florida, in Miami, and rest of Florida, it's far beyond the bleep because of COVID or simple tax policies. It is really a perfect storm in a positive sense of what's come to Florida. And this is a structural reset, and this is just beginning. There's a lot of gas in the tank left here.
So your message is structural reset.
In a positive sense.
Perfect. And then same question, Dr. O'Connor.
Combination of those two answers, honestly. Inventory, huge, hurdle that we've got to face. Our data show actually the number of listings of properties is actually not substantially different than it was before the pandemic. The problem we have with inventory is that everything sells too fast, and we have so many sales. If you think about like a grocery shelf that's been picked clean, it could be that there's nothing on the shelf because they're not getting any shipments in. It could be that it's empty because whatever's on that shelf is in very high demand. The latter is really what's going on here. We need more listings. We need more construction, but it's these really low interest rates that have otherwise we couldn't have the level of sales we're having. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But it's an incredible opportunity right now with, we're going to see pretty soon what kind of work from home policies are going to be adopted throughout the nation. Is it going to be hybrid? Like Florida Realtors, we're going to be hybrid. We're going to be in the office 3 days a week, out of the office 2 days a week. Some people will be fully offline. Those people are free to move wherever they want. So now we have economic development. We got to think not only about attracting businesses, but maybe, people to live down here who telecommute.
Thank you for that. And just a note, housekeeping note, anyone who has any questions for our amazing panelists, you're welcome to write them in your chat. We'll review them and ask them accordingly to our expert panelists. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone who is coming in. My name is Carla Guadamus Davis. I am your moderator. Welcome to State of Real Estate in South Florida. And we could say what the heck is going on at the bottom of that. And again, we have Karen Johnson, 2021 president of the Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors, Shahad Carmeli, developer, founder, CEO of Carr Properties, and Dr. Brad O'Connor, chief economist for Florida Realtors. So let's dig in, guys. I want to start with some data. For those of you who'd like to know numbers and want to dig into what's happening, you're going to love this because we are going to give you some data. So I'm going to start with Dr. O'Connor. The first question I have for you with data, number of sales. So we're focusing on Miami-Dade and Broward counties, single family condos and pricing. So where are we so far? And I guess if we can do a comparison within the last year to 2 years.
Sure. I actually brought a couple slides to address that question. Am I able to, it says my screen sharing is disabled.
Norma, our producer, will check your screen saving options to make sure that you can share your screen. So while we do that, and you're
good to
waiting
go,
for
Dr.
it.
O'Connor.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry for the delay in that. All right. So what I wanted to show you here, again, we're going to touch on sales in Broward and Miami-Dade in particular. This is Broward County sales in 2018. And the reason I'm showing you 2018 is because that was a fairly normal pattern throughout the year. We have a peak in the late spring in terms of sales, and then it dies down again. And 2019 was very similar to that. I've overlaid 2019. But when we get into 2020, this is what the heck is happening. We've got, of course, a really big downturn that was actually worse in South Florida than elsewhere in the state, particularly because of that early wave of COVID that hit South Florida that didn't hit the rest of the state. The big wave that hit the rest of the state was in the summer. But after that, basically since July, we've not only recovered, but we recovered our spring buying season throughout the rest of the year. You can see how elevated sales were for the rest of 2020. And into 2021, sales just have, continued to be higher than usual. On a year-over-year basis, well, we can't really, April's our most recent data point, and April last year was so low because of the pandemic that, yeah, we had 81% sales growth in terms of single family in April in Broward. But let's focus maybe on 2 years ago, same time of the year, but 2 years ago, still up 16%. So it's still, in terms of historical terms, this is still a really high rate of sales growth. Now over in Miami-Dade, very similar story. We had, we're up 83% year over year for April 2021, and then compared to 2 years ago, 25% growth in single family homes. That is really strong sales growth. I think we'd take 25% sales growth any year. But let's look at condos and townhouses, because this is actually quite amazing. Same kind of pattern over in Broward, although the dent we had from the pandemic was bigger. We initially had, I think, some fear into getting back into condos and townhouses, maybe related to the pandemic, but that dissipated. So we had a later recovery than we did for single family homes in terms of condos and townhouses. But look what it's done this year. This year, we have had huge growth in condo and townhouse resales. So up 127% year over year in Broward. Again, let's look at 2 years ago for a better idea of what the trend is. It's closer to 40% year over year, or year over 2 years. So extremely strong. But in Miami-Dade, it's even bigger. In fact, the last 2 months of data we have are the first time we've had more sales of condos in Miami-Dade than in Broward since, I think, May of 2015. So again, 234% more sales of condos versus last year, but compared to 2 years ago, 74%. That's just gigantic. We're finally getting into a situation where I think we're so starved for inventory at the low end of the pricing spectrum, because we have millennials moving into the market and these low interest rates that are fueling demand from them. I think a lot of them are giving up their idea that they're going to own a little single family home and are turning towards condos and townhouses. I think we've really reached a price point in the single family side where we've got a lot more buyers who just want to start building home equity, who haven't owned a home before, and condos are the way to do that. In terms of prices, we've got a 22% increase in single family homes and 20% increase in condos and townhouses in Broward, and a 35% increase in the median sale price year over year for Miami-Dade and single family, and 23% for condos and townhouses. Homes aren't appreciating this much. Part of what these numbers are reflecting is that we're seeing a lot more luxury sales this year than we did a year ago. And that's skewing the median up. If you look at something like the Case-Shiller Index for South Florida, that's going to give you a more accurate reading on what home values are doing. But there's, at least half of this growth is actual bona fide price appreciation.
Amazing. Amazing is all I have to say. These numbers really speak for themselves. Karen, I have a question for you. Based on the data that we just saw from Dr. O'Connor, what is that telling us, the ones us that are out there, boots on the ground with clients every day? How is that affecting agents and what we have to do for a living based on the numbers that you're seeing here?
You have to be very quick, efficient, and make sure your person is very pre-approved. Not only that, because there's such low inventory, you're seeing situations where we have shorter inspection periods. We have several showings, sometimes 20, 30, 40 at an open house. You have offers, we have coming soon status as well. You have offers coming in. So basically people with cash are the ones winning. So first-time home buyer or someone who is in the mid-range, it's really hard to compete as well. So realtors have to be.
Hold that thought, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
That's important, because we're talking about everybody's happy, right? But there is a downside.
There's a big downside.
If you want to call it losers, we can, because that's what's happening. So somebody with a VA loan, someone with an FHA loan, competing for that same property from someone that has a conventional loan or even cash, they don't have a chance. Am I right?
Absolutely, 100%. It's-
so the lower, so we do have an issue, and how is that going to be resolved with those folks that are qualified with an FHA loan? That's why real estate is here, right? We're supposed to help everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Affordable housing, workforce housing would be a serious issue. We have a shortage. We don't have a lot of space to build as well. So that's a major concern.
How do we resolve that and handle it? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
So, I mean, simple things like we have a lot of underutilized commercial properties. There's like 23,000 empty seats in Broward County in schools that are closed, schools that's closed because, you know, there's quasi-public schools also. There's a lot of underutilized things that we can actually use to reinvest in the community, do tax incentives to create homes for these people and tax credits for buyers, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it takes time, but there is ways to recreate it, because we do need, when we have problems with a teacher or a firefighter not being able to afford a home, that's an issue. So there's ways we have to start looking deeper into it.
I agree. And I guess that's when politics gets involved, and that'll be another session that we can do aside from today. I want to turn it over to Shahad. First of all, I want to thank you for enhancing the Hallandale Beach skyline, because your beautiful building that you have developed, 2000 Ocean, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a beautiful glass building, 38 stories. It's a lovely tower, 64 residences, right in the heart of Hallandale Beach, very close to Golden Beach. As a developer, Shahab, first of all, how's 2000 Ocean doing?
No, as you can surmise from the statistics that we just shared, obviously in terms of pricing, I'm happy to say we're doing better than we projected. So we're very happy with the pricing that we're achieving. We did face, like everybody else, the challenges during COVID. And in our case, we were mid-construction, so we did have supply chain delays. We had workforce delays. Thankfully, we implemented site safety measures early on. We didn't have cases. We were never required to shut down. But nevertheless, we had delays associated and some cost increases associated with that, particularly sourcing local material as opposed to imported material, so on and so forth. But on the plus side, we have a new group of buyers. So I don't think normally would have been looking down in Florida for full-time residents as opposed to secondary residences, and certainly in Hallandale Beach. So we're happy with our pricing. Velocity is good. And even though we've experienced some delays, we're on track to be delivering, you know, what I hope everybody in their own time gets to see and tour. And I invite all of you fellow panelists to allow us to host you. Now we've talked about this, to host you through the building. What's not, we're going to, of course, have a finish party. You know, TCO parties is traditional down there. Some good food, music, and drinks. And we, you know, we're getting the benefit of this push that is happening in Florida. So,
and what are you seeing most of your I mean, let's just get to the nitty gritty. This isn't a low income residential property. We're talking few million, right?
You're very right. This is a very contrarian project. Now, over the many years that, despite my youthful appearance, but over the many years that I've been doing this, you know, I've had a tendency to try to do kind of leading edge projects in neighborhoods or locations where we come in and we believe that through a combination of design, execution, quality, programming, delivery, we can deliver a product into a market which is, you know, slightly above what has been tradition in those markets. And we've achieved that in New York City, you know, and in Florida and other locations. So initially, when I saw this site, I loved the site, and I have to confess, I knew Golden Beach, but I was not familiar with Hallandale Beach. And it took me a while to understand how central the location is, how what a sleepy beauty beach community it is. It's not, you know, you're not being overwhelmed by massive skyscrapers, one next to another, like, you know, giant battleships put at end, you know, stacked against each other. So I love the fact that we can create something which despite the fact that it is a high rise, it's a glass high rise, still has a feel of nature to it and has a feel of this chiller part of the beach along this coastline. And the proximity to Fort Lauderdale, which I happen to like very much. I often fly into that airport. I prefer that to the Miami airport. Equidistance, and then you can hit west and hit upper Skane Boulevard. So great proximity, great access, but also on a beautiful stretch of sand there, right? So close to nature. That really appealed to me, and we conceive this as really homes. These are not. It's not a traditional condo building in a sense, as you very well put it. So we're starting at 2.9, which is not a starter home category for most people. But the premise here was that if there are a lot of empty nesters. I mean, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and soon they'll be going off to college. And I would think to myself, well, do I need all the square footage that I have or not? And oftentimes when people move from homes to apartments or condominiums, there's this question of how do I downsize? How do I downsize? But if you take an apartment, a condominium unit, which is like ours, our half floors are approximately 3,000 square feet, that really is the equivalent of living in a 5,000 square foot house, because all the loss that you have to internal staircases, mechanicals, all the ancillary square footage that a house needs, you give up. So your living space on one floor, which is much more efficient than our 2 or 3 floors. Now, all of a sudden you're moving from a home to a home. But while you have that square footage, now you have all the conveniences of living in a building that is managed. We have 3 swimming pools, we have a spa, we have a gym, valet parking, right? So the idea really is that you're moving into another home. You're not downsizing, you're keeping the square footage, you're living on the beach and having all of these amenities there. Now, the question was very correctly pointed out, is there a market for this price per square foot and median price in Hallandale? And that was somewhat of a gamble that I took at the time, but I also relied on my past projects where I have gone in markets and set new price points. And I have to tell you that in terms of value, price points are kind of misleading, because there is cheap and there's value, right? You can buy a watch for $15. If it doesn't work from day one, it's $15 wasted. You can buy something for $1,000, and if it's an item of value and enjoy it, money well spent, right? So it's really, what are you getting in terms of value on a comparative basis? And I think Dr. O'Connor would agree with me that humans are not good at analyzing absolute value. Our brains are not wired that way, but we're very good at comparative value. If you've never seen an iPhone before, they show it to you, say this thing's $8,000 or $800. You don't know what that means. But once you've had iPhones, you start lining them up. We all become very good at comparative shopping. So we really achieved that in Hallandale. And because of that, the same market advisors to us who were saying you're being maybe aspirational in your pricing, they are telling us you should raise pricing. The demand is certainly there. And as far as buyer profile goes, I have to tell you, I mean, you talk about the United Nations. I mean, we have, from South America, Central America, Northeast, New York, Atlanta, Boston, Canada, California. We had a couple from Oklahoma who was looking. They didn't end up buying it. It was just such an outlier for me. I just found that very interesting.
I want to tell you, somebody that does the beat 90% in Hallandale. I appreciate what you've created. It is a piece of art, in my opinion. The beach club is always known as the top place to be or whatnot, but I've never met you before, so I'm not, I'm just telling you, I think that what you've built and bringing to our city is amazing, and it's actually going to add. So I want to thank you. We need developers like you that are enhancing our cities. And we also, like Karen mentioned, need developers to give us some more economical housing opportunities as well. So I think a combination of both would be lovely. Let me get to some of the questions. I do have a question from Laurie Stein. It's a very simple, but not really. Rent or buy? Let me throw that over to Karen. That's the big question. Is it a good time to rent or buy? And I guess in any aspect, condo or single family.
So both situations, we do have a shortage of supply. And based on, and Brad could add more to this, based on what we're seeing, because we don't have anything close to a balance, we expect prices would be increasing because obviously it's supply and demand. So with rates staying the way it is, we expect prices to still go up, and we could see that probably in the next 18 months or so, based if everything stays the same. So either which way, you're still in a bind. So if you go rent something for a year and something goes up even 5% next year and rates go up, you're at a loss. So you might as well take that money and invest it into buying something now if you can find it.
Right. And I think it's a personal decision to make because unfortunately, if you're buying a single family home right now in South Florida, which is where we're focused on, you're in the gold rush. So you're not going to get it cheap, guys. So if you really, 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 really want that house, you're going to probably have to pay over asking and have some competition. I'm very happy to be in the condo market because I have seen just people say, forget it, we're going to move into a condo for now, maybe rent it out after 2 years and then come back to single family when things are quote unquote, if you can call it normal. Dr. O'Connor, I want to throw it back to you with some more numbers because I'm really excited to find this one out. What city, Miami-Dade and Broward, had the most sales? What particular city did we really see down here that was the biggest boom?
All right, I have another slide. So, okay. So these little orange bubbles are zip codes. The larger the bubble, the more sales we had in the first quarter of 2021. And the darker orange they are, the more sales there were. So this is just single family home sales. And it's pretty evident where the strongest sales were, basically up and down the coast of Miami-Dade County on Miami Beach and Key Biscayne and elsewhere. The 5 highest zip codes in terms of year over year growth in single family home sales, they're right here. There's Hollywood made the list, and I'm only including anything that had 40 sales or more. Hollywood made the list, but it was 5th. You had an increase of 586% in terms of sales in the southern part of Miami Beach, down in South Beach, 48 sales versus 7 last year in the first quarter. So that's the kind of trend we're looking at. This is a trend we're seeing in the entire state. Any neighborhoods, we thought maybe people might flee from the urban core to the suburbs. The data didn't bear that out. People are buying homes wherever luxury homes are. It doesn't matter if it's a core neighborhood with high density or a low density outlying exurb. Throughout the state, the sales have all been in the higher the priced area, the more inventory available, and it doesn't matter what price tier people are interested in buying homes, but there's more homes for sale at that upper price tier. Condos and townhouses, again, the number of sales really high along the coast, and pretty much the same areas in terms of growth year over year in number of sales up and down Miami Beach and down to Key Biscayne.
This is fascinating to me. It's fascinating to actually see the numbers. So any up and coming realtors that are on this, where to do your farming because that's where you're going to get most of your deals right now. I think that's fascinating. We have another question here. And I'm going to address it to Shahad. The question is Broward versus Miami as far as development opportunities. This question comes from Rebecca San Juan. So I guess that like we just saw the numbers, Miami is the sexy city. Broward has had opportunities, but what is it going to take to have developments in Broward like we see in Miami-Dade?
Well, Carla, do you remember, you're all too young to remember the old Archie comics? And Archie had 2 girlfriends in high school. One of them was Veronica, and then the other one was Betty. And, Miami's kind of like Veronica, and Hallandale Beach is kind of like Betty, and I was a kid, I would read those comics and think to myself, God, if I was in that high school, who would I like more? And I tell you, it's, look, it's all part of a greater market, obviously, right? And in terms of opportunity, obviously Miami-Dade, because of its size and because of what's happening with crypto and what's happening with office influx. And there's a whole story, by the way, that don't forget, as people move down here, there's a demand for office, there's a demand for ancillary backup, and a lot of people who move down and bring other jobs with them, right? So it's a very virtuous cycle. But there's always opportunity. But I would say that one of the things that I do like about Hallandale Beach was the fact that it was a limited, uh, drive towards building a whole bunch of high rises. I like the fact that it still has that quieter feel to it, and you're not going to be seeing like Sunny Isles, and there's nothing wrong with Sunny Isles, just a very different approach to development and density and height, right? That was not going to happen to Hallandale Beach. So there's opportunity in all markets depending on your clients, and sometimes you create your own opportunities. But in conjunction with this, the question that Karen answered so well and Lori had asked, buy versus rent, and this ties into the opportunity for development. Are you doing multifamily, or are you doing product for sale? As far as the end consumer goes, not to step into Dr. O'Connor's shoes here, but the kind of inflation that is going to come our way, and I'm not talking about traditional drivers of inflation, which is demand, velocity of circulation, but just printing money at the rate that we have had. And putting it out there, right? The kind of inflation that's going to come our way. I would say this everywhere in this podcast: if you can grab a piece of real estate which has great utility value, you get to live in it or rent it and get income from it. You get to leverage at these historically low rates, and it's one of the best hedges against inflation you can have. And I really would have, if I had a young friend who was going to become a realtor and said, what should I learn in terms of macroeconomics when I'm talking to my buyers, and say, hey, you should buy. Look at what drives inflation, understand the basics of what's happened here with our currency in the past couple of years, and explain to your buyers, like you said, it's expensive now, it's only going to become more expensive. And you're going to look.
That's a great point. And Karen, I'm going to toss this back to you, because as we speak, I'm sure all of us speak to clients almost every day. One of the biggest things we hear, oh, we'll just wait for prices to go down. We'll wait for the bubble to burst. This is going to be like 2008, 2007. So Karen, and this coincides with the question that Deborah has. Actually, Arthur Bellick. Arthur is, how long do you see the prices going up and why? I'll expand that question by asking, is this a 2008?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Totally different situation, totally different. The economy's way different. And I actually think we're going to even have less supply, because a lot of the international buyers haven't come back into the market as yet. A lot of the Caribbean, a lot of the South American market is still, because of COVID, out. So when that happens, maybe you'll have some Canadians starting to sell because their dollar value is so different, but it is, people are flocking here even more so than ever. And COVID also made people realize that, hey, you know what, a lot of the things that I can have in the US, I can't have freedom, because there's some countries still on total lockdown. Just from other states, people are coming in. So I don't think we're anywhere close to seeing. So I see values going up, because I still see Florida as such everyone wants to be a part of Florida. All the people who made fun of Florida before, previous, is like, oh, it's old people, or it's this, or it's that. They are looking at Florida because I would say in my area, most of the transplants we have, which is usually the Northeast, we also have California coming in, we have Chicago coming in, we have such transplants, and these are not affordable homes either, and they're going way above. So I see that value. And even from a rental, like for example, there was a rental that was listed for $4,000 for a 3-bedroom. There was offers for $4,600, like in half an hour. So, and people are paying a year up front. So people just want to get their foot in. So I think it's a lifestyle. It's everything combined in one. And obviously our taxes as well. So it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Right. And then I think the major difference is the banks aren't giving away the money like they used to. It's more difficult.
Much more stringent. Much more stringent. Yeah.
One of the biggest changes as well between this and what happened then. So when people say that, it's like we have to educate clients and tell them we don't see that happening. So it's only going to be more, not less, right? Is what-
Absolutely. Our buyers are much more qualified. A lot more people have a lot more cash that they're putting as down payments. We don't have 100%, 110% financing. Most people are, even FHAs are putting down 10%. Everyone is putting down 20%. So people are a lot more educated than they were before, prepared, because some of us, the millennials may not remember, but a lot more people are much more conservative than they were before, and our lending practices are as well.
And this is turns me back to Dr. O'Connor with our next slide, because this is interesting. Cash versus loans. Where are we with that number, with that data? You can only know so much from our own little bubble that we live in, but what really are the numbers between folks buying cash and those folks that are buying with a loan? So I'll throw it back to you, Dr. O'Connor. What do the numbers look like there?
Before I do that, I want to add on to Karen's answer. Not only is it because they have strong credit scores, our buyers, our existing homeowners have a lot more home equity built up than last time, and they have strong credit as well. We have, I think, from my perspective, the biggest difference between now and the last housing cycle is that we're undersupplied versus oversupplied. We built way too many homes. And the second biggest difference is, why is demand increasing? Now it's because of demographics and low mortgage rates. Last time it was kind of an irrational rise in demand based on future expectations that did not pan out to be true, i.e. Prices never go down in the housing market. Not combine that with a once in a lifetime financial meltdown, which is not how we normally have a recession. Also, people aren't using their homes as piggy banks anymore. There's a lot less activity in home equity line of credit. We're only issuing fixed rate mortgages at this point. Over 90% of mortgages are fixed rate. Hard to have an unanticipated rate increase when you have a 30-year fixed mortgage. There are a million other reasons why this is different. Yes, prices are high, but it's for completely different reasons, and that there are more fundamentally sound reasons.
With that in mind, did you ever think that an actual health pandemic would have created this real estate boom? Because let's be honest, that's what happened, right? I mean,
in a sense, that's definitely changed some consumer tastes and preferences in terms of where they want to live. I think people want more space. That might have put people into the market for home. That we've all gotten more used to our homes in the last year than maybe we had been previously, and we've decided maybe that we want some kind of reallocation of how we have our space. But the low interest rates and as a result of the economic policy, that's what's driving a lot of this right now, I think, in addition to other demographics. Although, of course, the millennials aren't the ones buying all those condos up and down Miami Beach right now. So it's a lot of those factors. In terms of luxury, they're just reallocating assets versus, what are the alternatives to real estate? And so that's why we have enough sellers, because people just want to shift their assets. Other great point is international buyers. They will be back. And if you remember, when we recovered last time, it was investors, and particularly international investors down in South Florida, that really helped us find a price floor. And Latin America was booming at the time. They actually had a strong level of economic growth down there, and they kind of helped us out of the depths of where we had fallen. So they were key in terms of the recovery, and they'll be back too. Now, if you want me to answer that question on cash sales, I do have a screen for that. So cash sales, actually, this is as a percentage of all sales. And I thought that was better because we're seeing a ton of cash sales right now. But if you look at it in terms of the percent of all sales, now this is Realtor reported within our MLSs. These are all cash sales as a percentage of sales. So for single family in Miami-Dade and Broward, pretty similar figures as of April, 24% in Broward and 25% for Miami-Dade. And that's, we've actually had a decline in the share of cash sales over the past several years. And that kind of just corresponds to the mortgage rate, which has gradually fallen over that time too. It's even as an investor, if you can get cheap money through a loan, you might, do that. So we're back up a little bit, but it's not appreciably higher than where we had been. I started this data series in 2016 because that's about when we worked all the foreclosures out of the market. But back when we had a lot more foreclosures on the market, it got much higher than this. But as for the last few years, we're actually kind of in a normal area, but we are trending upward. We'll watch where that goes. On the condo side, it's pretty much a similar story. 51%, obviously cash sales in condos are more common, so it's always a higher percentage, but it's not different than what we'd seen over the last few years, 51% versus 47%. All of these values were depressed over the past year up until recently, just because of the factors involving the pandemic. And there was just a lot less cash moving and the rates were quite low.
Wow. And the other question that we had discussed prior to, based on all of this data that we've seen this morning, what's our population data? You know, you always read in the news, 1,000 people are moving to South Florida every day or whatever. Where are we today with people moving to South Florida?
Well, the best two sources of data in terms of migration come from the IRS and the Census Bureau. And unfortunately, those are updated with a 2-year lag. So we'll get detailed information eventually. We just had the census results reported at the state level, and Florida came in actually below where we had estimated we would be. We only count the number of people in the state once every 10 years. Even though we work with estimates for each year, every year between them, those are always estimates. And we don't really know exactly how close we were to being right until we look at the census numbers. So the census number came in for Florida slightly below where we estimated, enough to actually lose us a congressional seat we thought we were going to get. We added 1 seat instead of 2, which is what we thought. So a little bit low there, not significantly enough that you can't say, you know, several hundred people move to Florida each day. There's a number out there that says 1,000 people move each day. That's actually closer to what net population growth is. It's not migration into Florida because we have to, you know, use births and deaths and all that stuff. So if you actually look at the number of people who move into Florida based on census data, it's usually about 2,000 people a day who move in. And then we have some people who move out. It's usually younger people who move out. Older people tend to stay. But younger people, it's kind of a net inflow and outflow that's roughly zero. I'm talking about people in their 20s to 30, early 30s. But after that, we gain population in terms of migration.
Well, I just say, just drive down Biscayne Boulevard or University Drive at any given point during the day, and you'll see that it's gridlock. And that's how I know that we're packed. we're definitely very packed. But yeah, show us some numbers.
Okay, yeah. So what a lot of us have been working with is postal address changes. Now, these aren't the best numbers to use. You can do 2 kinds of permanent change of address when you log it with the Postal Service. You can do it by individual or by family. If everyone in your house has the same last name, you can just do 1 form. But if you have different last names, you got to do different forms. So this isn't exactly number of people, and it's not exactly the number of households. It's something in between. But it gives you a good sense if you just look at the change from 1 year to the next. And here's a case where, yeah, these numbers don't make much sense by themselves, but comparing them to each other, as Shahab pointed out, is much more useful. And you can see there actually wasn't a lot of significant change in terms of from 2019 to 2020 in terms of where people were coming from, except from New York and places like that. Basically, you know, New York and San Francisco were in a class by themselves in terms of migration. And because a lot of the media is based there, our national media, there were a lot of stories about it. But if you look at other large cities, that especially those that aren't as high priced in their urban cores where a lot of white collar workers might live who work in the finance or tech industry, there wasn't actually that much flight that you can see. But definitely there was out of New York. There was a significant increase of people out of New York County, that's Manhattan, or Kings County, which is Brooklyn. Both of those, we had a significant increase of movement to Broward County. And then there's Queens down there, which wasn't much of a shift. So we're talking about the high price, highly dense areas where people are no longer necessarily tethered to a workplace who can afford to. And we're not even looking at temporary change of address data, which is even stronger in this direction. Miami-Dade County, quite similar numbers, huge increase in people out of Manhattan, almost doubled. But it's not everyone in Manhattan, you know, an extra 1,000 or 1,200 people from Manhattan is not everybody, but it's still, for our real estate market, in terms of our luxury sales, that's a big shift. So, and again, like Shahab could tell you, you don't have to move to Florida to buy a condo down here, right? So, so we've got, a lot of people who temporarily relocated either to the condos they already owned, or those who are interested in buying one as a second home or an investment. So overall, not a gigantic shift in terms of migration, except for some areas where we traditionally have strong channels of migration, and those doubled, particularly high-priced areas like New York.
Yeah, we love our New Yorkers down here, don't we? I'm sure you see more New York plates down here than anything else. You used to see a lot of Canadian plates, like Karen said, our Canadians should be coming back in droves, hopefully, but we did see a rise in a lot of condo sales from Canadian sellers that were just liquidating. Guys, we're almost in 50 minutes into this. I think this panel, you guys have been amazing, the panelists that we have here today. Again, thank you for being here for the State of Real Estate in South Florida, powered by Broward, Palm Beaches, and St. Lucie Realtors. We're gonna wrap it up in a few ways, like we started, with a 2 to 3 sentence, if you can, a genie in the bottle. So I know none of us can say what's gonna actually happen, but we have a pretty good idea based on our knowledge, Dr. O'Connor's data. I'm gonna start, first of all, Shahad, do you have any other projects that you're working on down here in South Florida?
We have several projects that we're working on in Florida, in Wynwood and on the river, Miami. Our strongest positions are actually urban developers. This was 2000 was a little bit of an outlier. I fell in love with the site, and I knew Enrique Norton before. He's a lovely, lovely man. And the building was actually previously designed when we bought it, but I said, Enrique, can you do something different here? And we took a breather and we took a leap of faith and said, let's overbuild to this market, and hopefully people realize it and come into that. But our main focus on downtown Miami, we have a project that was stopped pre-pandemic because of what was going on. We started excavations across from Brickell City Center. So we're very active in the market, very long in the market. We recently bought a block of condominiums. It was a tail end of the Brickell City Center, Swires Development, Rise and Reach. So we actually bought that with my good friend Edgardo de Fortuna, who's been a very good mentor to me in this market. I want to add to something that Dr. O'Connor said. When you look at those statistics, right, also take a step back and look at the type of migration of people that you're getting down to Florida. So numbers are one thing, right? And always within the data, how you sift it, how you start slicing it up. It's like saying, what's the average price of a car? What's the average price of a home? It's kind of meaningless until you start digging down, extrapolating what's specific to your sector. So a lot of the movement that's happened from the Northeast, from New York, is very different this time. These are people who are coming down and moving either their headquarters or parts of their headquarters and bringing jobs. And just from my own social set, my own business set, there are types of people who move down here, bought homes in Palm Beach or Boca or Miami or Golden Beach or here. These are people who would have never thought about moving down to Miami. Just died in the wool New Yorkers, they were going to come down there. And all of these guys come down and they bring jobs with them. Right? These are people who are coming to start new lives, new companies, continuations of companies. That's going to have a huge effect that you're going to see in the next 2, 3, 5 years in the numbers of ancillary jobs that are going to be, which is the best way to lift everybody out of poverty, the American dream, creation of jobs and getting on that ladder. So those numbers, both in absolute numbers, but also in the type, in who's moving down here and what they're bringing with them down here, are very, very positive.
And I think that all of us who are in this industry, we should be extremely blessed and happy that we are, because in my humble opinion, the future looks bright for us who are doing this. So what I'd like to do is go with each one of you in the panel and just ask you, what do you see the future of South Florida real estate the next year, the next 2 years? I will start with Shahab Karmali, who is a developer, founder, CEO of Car Properties. And I want to thank you again. I think we should say thank you to all the developers that call South Florida their home, that they continue to build amazing opportunities And some people hate seeing cranes and construction. I love it. When I drive at 3:45, if you're on Sunny Isles Beach, you'll see hundreds of construction workers crossing Collins Avenue to get off work. That site is beautiful. So I don't know, maybe I'm just a weirdo, but I love to see that. So we really thank you for investing in South Florida. And I'll start with you.
Carla, first of all, I want to thank you for pointing that out. Early on, when there was a discussion about our site, I put a chart together about to the city of Hamilton about how many people work on our job site, and then how many other people get their living by deliveries in the supply chain there. I said just our food cart alone, just our food cart daily alone is supporting 16 families. Just count the number of people who are there. And if we're shut down, you know, all the people who are relying on these paychecks, you know, to pay education, housing, food, you know, where are they going to go? So I love the fact that you point that out, and we're all in this together. You know, none of us on an island, our actions impact all of us. And you were talking about affordable housing, which is private government initiative. Education, I'm very involved in the charter school movement in New York, and I think education is the single most important factor in elevating people out of poverty, getting them on that American dream. Different discussion, but I am obviously I'm very bullish on South Florida because we're investing a lot of money here. We continue to be down here, and on so many levels. Is it lifestyle that you're seeking? Is it new opportunities? Is it good governance? I don't think we talked enough about good governance. I'll tell you something that, you know, if you go to places of worship, as I do, I'm Jewish, so we're synagogue, but one of the things we always pray for is for good governance, the health. You know, we always say, God, please let us live in a place where you have wise rulers, because it makes such a big difference. And one of the things that's so evident is you look at Florida and the policies that have been enacted in Florida versus New York. You know, a lot of what you're seeing, which is structural and permanent, is a result of good policies versus bad policies. So I look at all of that in Florida, and I think, again, this is a structural issue. And the message that I would put out there again is, this is structural. This is a reset. It's not at all, oh, I saw this in 08 and 09. Dr. O'Connor spoke brilliantly about that, and I couldn't agree with him more. Complete different set of statistics. And say, go long Florida, you know, go strong, go long, buy real estate. Great hedge against inflation. And you get to live in it. You get to rent it out.
That's right. There you go. Dr. O'Connor, what does your crystal ball tell you?
Well, it's not as clear as maybe Shahab's on inflation. I've been, you know, I see a lot of arguments in both directions, if it's going to be transitory or could it be potentially bad. You know, the last cycle, we pumped a lot of money into the system too, and it didn't find its way into consumers' hands nearly as much into wages. So, but we did it a lot differently this time. So we're going to find out what happens. Is the inflation going to be in stocks only, or is it going to break out more into wages and consumer prices? We're already starting to see the data trend up, although the data actually was quite low last year in terms of the price level. It was depressed. So the next few months are critical. The one thing I can tell you is that the thing that economists are worse at predicting is inflation, and second place would be interest rates. So why don't we think about both cases where inflation is transitory versus long-term? If it's longer term, like Shahab believes, real estate is an awesome hedge against that. So if you're worried there is going to be more inflation, that would be a good time, because that's going to drive up interest rates, by the way, as soon as inflation ramps up and stays up there. So now would be the time to sell your house if you're thinking about selling anytime soon, because otherwise you might get stuck having to take a higher rate with your next home. So that would be point one. And even if it's transitory, well, then we're going to have rates rising at a lower rate for mortgages. And if that happens, then the party lasts longer in terms of home sales, but it's also going to continue to have that upward pressure on home prices. As long as mortgage rates are rising, it's going to slow down price growth. And that's eventually going to take hold. It already is starting to, I think, a little bit. Although mortgage rates have kind of flattened out, eventually they're going to be back into more normal ranges. And that's going to slow us down into a more sustainable, normal rate of sales and price growth.
Karen, what is your crystal ball telling you?
For the next 18 months, I think we're good. From a realtor perspective, spend your time educating yourself, being involved, advocating, getting involved in your local economy, community, because we make a big difference. We're the reason why our political action is the reason why we were able to do real estate and not cause our economy to halt during the start of the pandemic. Our political situation is very positive in Florida. We need to start investing in infrastructure in our local areas to create jobs for everyone as well, and to keep up with everything else that's going on. So in the short term, things look very positive. Yes, we'll have a shortage of inventory for a while. However, we need to be creative, and we need to keep an eye on everything as well. Don't be frivolous. Be cautious, but the sky is not falling.
And I'll say this, Karen, and you and I think we'll agree on this. Get yourself a good realtor.
Absolutely.
Hey, amen.
Absolutely.
Right? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Everybody likes this iBuying situation.
Yeah.
An iBuying situation, that's a computer. So if you have a person, folks out there, always get yourself a good realtor, and that person will fight for you.
A true professional will do the best job for you.
And I like it much more when we have an educated, smart developer who walks into our sales office, knows what he or she is talking about, and that makes sales happen.
Absolutely.
And those developers, God, they earned their fees. I'm the first to say it. We would not be here without the developer.
I want to sell one of your units, Shahab. That would be a nice commission.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that.
Love
Shahab Carmeli, developer, founder, CEO of Car Properties, Dr. Brad O'Connor, Chief Economist of Florida Realtors, and Karen Johnson, 2021 President of the Broward Palm Beaches and St. Lucie Realtors. You guys have been amazing panelists. This has been really a true pleasure and a treat to have all of you here. I would like to leave you with what's coming up next with the Hallandale Beach Chamber of Commerce. On July 8th at 10 a.m., you want to learn how to do business with the city. There's a lot of opportunities with the city of Hallandale Beach. We're going to have coffee with Andrea Luz, City of Hallandale Beach Procurement Department Director. You don't want to miss this. So a lot of people don't know the cities have a lot of opportunity. So if you want to be a vendor, if you want to know how to do business with the city, you got to watch this July the 8th at 10 a.m. Thank you everyone for joining us. Continue success. And I think more importantly than anything, good health, and be kind to one another.
Amen to
Thank
that.
you. Have a great day.
Karen, Carla, Dr. O'Connor,
Bye.
Norma for organizing this. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Have a great day, everyone.
Likewise. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.